Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillahirobbilalamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala asrofil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain amma ba'du. The Honorable Mr. Andiyana Gafar, as a lecturer in this course, and all of my friends, we are from Group 9. We will presentation about correctional designs. Before we start our presentation, let me introduce our team. The first is me, Muhammad Rizky Fauzan Ismail, as a moderator, and the next is Alfan Alfian Herman. Okay, next. Okay, and here we have table of content from this material. The first is definition, the second is type, the third is characteristic, the fourth is potential, the next is steps, and the last is evaluate. Okay, next slide. For the first material is about definition of correction designs will be explained by me. Okay, next slide. Okay, correlational research is a type of research method used to examine the relationship between two or more variables without manipulating the independent variable. It aims to identify patterns, associations, or predict outcomes based on the observed relationship between variables. The type of research is particularly used when it is not feasible or ethical to manipulate variables, as in the case of studying human behavior or natural phenomena. So, correlational research is a valuable method for exploring relationship between variables, predict outcomes, and gaining insight into complex phenomena. Its developed over time has led to the refinement of methodologies and statistical technique, making it is essential tool in various fields of research. The key characteristic of correlational research include the use of scatter plots to visualize relationship, correlational metrics to quantify associations, and controlling for third variable to ensure the observed relationship are not suppressed. Okay, next slide. When do you use correlational research? Correlational research is used when researchers want to explore relationship between variables, predict outcomes, and gaining insight into complex phenomena without manipulating the independent variables. It is a valuable research method in various fields for understanding associations, identifying trends, and making informed prediction based on observed relationship between variables. And next is how did the correlational research develop? Correlational research has developed over time through the evaluations of research methodologies and statistical techniques. The roots of correlational research can be traced back to early observational study in psychology and sociology, where researchers sought to understanding relationship between variables without manipulating them. Okay, next slide. Okay, next slide is about type of correlational design. Will be explained by Alfan. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you, moderator. So next material is types of correlational designs. For the first is the explanatory design. The explanatory design is correlational research is a methodological approach that focuses on explaining the relationship between variables. This design seeks to understand the extent to which changes in one variable are associated with changes in another variable without manipulating the independent variable. One key aspect of the explanatory design is the use of statistical techniques to analyze the relationship between variables. Researchers often employ correlation coefficients to measure the strength and direction of the association between variables. These coefficients provide a quantitative measure of the relationship, allowing researchers to assess the degree to which changes in one variable are reflected in changes in another. Next, we have the prediction design. The prediction design in correlational research is a methodological approach that focuses on forecasting outcomes using predictor variables. Its design aims to predict future performance or behavior based on the observed relationships between variables. One key aspect of the prediction design is the identification of predictor variables that are hypothesized to influence the creation variable. Researchers must carefully select predictor variables based on theoretical frameworks, previous research findings, or empirical evidence.
Okay, thank you, Alfan, for your good explanations. Next slide. Okay, next slide is about key characteristic of correlational design. In here we have three characteristics. The first characteristic is display of score. Display of score in correlational research are typically pre-present using scatter plots and correlational matrix. Scatter plots visually represent the relationship between two variables, showing the form of association and identifying extreme score. So, on the other hand, correlational matrix display correlational coefficients for a variable in a study, providing a tabular representation of relationship among variables. This visual display are essential in understanding the direction, form, and strength of correlational between variables in correlational research. The second characteristic is a correlational matrix. A correlational matrix is a tabular representation of the relationship between variables in a correlational study. It displays correlational coefficients which quantify the strength and direction of the association between pair of variables. So correlation matrix are useful the hypothesis testing and model building in correlational research. Researchers can use the correlational coefficients to test specific hypotheses about the relationship between variables and to develop predictive model that explain and forecast outcome based on the identified association. And the last characteristic is association between scores is the direction of association refer to whether the variable move in the same direction is positive correlations or opposite direction is a negative correlation as one variable chance. The form of association can be linear or nonlinear with a linear relationship showing a straight line patterns in a scatter plot, while nonlinear relationship exhibit curve on non-straight patterns. Okay, next slide. Okay, next slide is about potential will be explained by Alfan. Time is yours.
Okay, for next material is potential ethical issues on conducting relational research. Ethical issues in conducting correlational research revolve around maintaining integrity, transparency, and objectivity throughout the research process. Researchers must uphold ethical standards in data collection, analysis, interpretation, and reporting to ensure the validity and reliability of their findings. So, by addressing potential ethical concerns proactively, researchers can uphold the principles of research ethics and contribute to the advancement of knowledge in a responsible and ethical manner.
Okay, thank you, Alfan. Next is step of conducting a correlational study. Next slide. Okay, and here we have 6 steps. The first step is determine if a correctional study best addresses the research program. A correlational study is utilized to identify the direction of degree of association between two sets of scores, explaining complex relationship and predicting outcomes. It thus is not proof a relationship but indicates as association between two or more variables. The next step is step two, identify individual to study. In the step two of conducting a recursional study, researchers should identify individual to study by selecting a sample that is representative of the population of interest. Ideally, individuals should be randomly selected to generalize the result to the population, and permission should be obtained for relevant authorities and institutional review boards. And the third step is identify two or more measures for each individual in the study. In the step 3 of conducting a correlational study, researchers need to identify two or more measures for each individual in study. The involve selecting instrument that measure the variable of interest and ensure that these instruments have proven validity and reliability. And the fourth step is collect data and monitor potential threats. In the step 4 of conducting a correlational study, researchers collect data by administering instrument and obtaining score from each individual in the study. It is essential to monitor potential threats to the validity of the score through the data collection process. And the next is step 5, analyze the data and represent the result. In step 5 of conducting a correlational study, researchers analyze the data using appropriate statistical products to determine the strength and direction of relationship between variables. And the last step is step 6. Interpret the result. Interpreting the result of a correlational study is a crucial step in understanding the relationship between variables and drawing meaningful conclusion. In the context, the relationship interpretation involve analyzing the correlation coefficients, regression to determine the strength, direction, significance, of the relationship between the variable under investigation. Okay, I think enough. Next slide. Next slide is about evaluate. Will be explained by Alfan. Time is yours.
All right, for next material is evaluate evaluate a correlational study. How do you evaluate a correlational study? To evaluate a correlational study, researchers should consider factors such as an adequate sample size for hypothesis testing, displaying correlational results in a matrix or graph, and interpreting the direction and magnitude of the association between variables. And additionally, assessing the quality of data collection, analysis, and interpretation is essential in evaluating the strength and validity of a correlational study. I think enough for me. I put it to moderator.
Okay, thank you, Alfan, for your good explanation. Next slide. Okay, I think enough for the material. Next, we move to the conclusion. Correlational research serves as a valuable tool for exploring relationship between variables, making prediction, and informing decision-making in various domains. By following rigorous research practice, utilizing appropriate statistical technique, and considering ethical consideration, researchers can conduct high-quality correlational study that contribute to the advancement of knowledge and the improvement of educational practice. The material course the importance of understanding the complexity of correlational research, interpreting findings accurately, and applying research insight to address real-world challenges and enhance student outcomes. Okay, next slide. Okay, I think enough for the presentation. Thank you for your attention and thank you for watching this video. If you have comment and if you have question for our group, you can write in the column commentar or you can write in the literal box. Okay, I think enough for this material. Thank you for attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.